Well, hello, everybody. It's Angie Nuttall with the VIP Center for Business Women here in Indianapolis. And I'm excited to be sitting here today on Zoom talking with the VIP Center's top sponsor this year in 2023, Sherry Borshoff of Borshoff Consulting. So welcome, Sherry.
Hi, thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. I'm excited to dig in to your world today because I love your tagline on your logo, which is resolving your life's most taxing situations. So I could list probably 10 right off the bat taxing situations that I have just as a business owner. But I'm sure that you deal with all kinds of tax situations, right?
Yeah, we do. Some worse than others.
Right.
Right now, we're trying to wrangle all of the folks who have extended their tax returns because it's less than 3 weeks away. The deadline's October 16th, and it's just mind-boggling how fast that time goes.
Right.
And so, people just got to get their stuff into me so we can get their tax return done and reviewed before that. So that's what's going on in my world right now. It's sometimes it's like herding cats.
Right. Well, you and I were talking recently, and you were pretty stressed that day because you had some clients that they weren't so concerned about the deadline.
That were business people who had S corps and partnerships that had to be filed by September 15th, and I'm like, how can I care more than they do? And I'm sure they care. They just, you know, it's one of the reasons why my business exists is for them to have somebody who comes alongside them and nags them until they do the stuff that needs to get done with
Right.
regard to taxes. So
Well,
it's
so,
the job I signed up for.
right. And speaking of that, why don't you share a little bit more about what you do? I mean, what's your background and how did you even get into this business?
Well, my background is I started off, I was a paralegal my professional life. I started off as a paralegal in a tax division of I'd say a medium-sized law firm here in Indianapolis when I was around 20 years old. And at that time, I was going to get my business degree in accounting. I was going to IUPUI, but I worked full time and did that. And I just really wanted to go on to law school and become a tax lawyer because I just saw how grateful the clients were to these guys when they resolved their situation. And I mean, and that wasn't even so much of getting into all the stuff my firm does now, but I guess I've always had a passion for tax.
Mhm.
Um, and I worked for a CPA firm for a little while, and then I went into corporate work. I worked as a controller for a multi-unit restaurant chain, and then I worked as a controller for an industrial electric um, contractor.
Mhm.
They had a huge Eli Lilly uh, contract, and they needed somebody to really kind of wrangle in their accounting processes and stuff, um, because that turned out to be the 10,000-pound gorilla that they needed to keep feeding metrics to. And
Right.
so I came on board with them, and I worked with them for 9 years. And then Lilly had a big shakeup, and that's when I got downsized from that job in late 2009, early 2010. So, then I'm kind of like sitting around thinking, what am I going to do with my life?
Right.
Do I want to look for another corporate job? And I did for a while. But it just kind of occurred to me that there are a multitude of small businesses out there that need the skill set that I can offer, but they don't have the budget to hire somebody full time to like be the controller or
Right.
the CFO of their company. So that's how I started out. My original business plan was really geared more toward being an outsourced CFO. And then people would ask, well, can you do my taxes? And yeah, I can, probably understand at that time. I understand more now, but at that time I thought I probably understand a little more than most
Right.
about taxes. So uh kind of morphed into like now everything is really kind of come at from a tax perspective. If
Yeah.
we do a client's bookkeeping, we look at that from a tax perspective of are you building the audit trail that you're going to need if you ever have to defend any of these things that we're writing off on your profit and loss statement? How are we going to defend it? So I'm constantly almost soapbox preacher from that standpoint. Is you have to have that proof, and your bank account, your bank statement or your credit card statement is not adequate proof. You have to keep the invoice, you have to keep the receipt. And I employ tools to help my clients to make sure that they have that in place, and
So,
especially digitally.
yeah,
So
you started to talk about something important, more important, or is equally important. And you don't just do taxes, you provide, sounds like the wraparound services for a small business where money is concerned. So say more about those services that you provide.
in addition to bookkeeping and payroll data entry and processing services, I also offer my clients a quarterly financial tax planning meeting,
Mhm.
because when you're self-employed, you just signed up for tax liability unless you went
Right.
into that business thinking, gosh, I hope I don't make anything doing this,
Yeah.
which nobody does. So we look at your financials, and I do a tax planning session with the client, and we decide, do you need to pay your estimated taxes? We can even go in depth of on the financial statement. There's data there, so you can say, well, this seems to be working well and this not so much, so maybe you should do more of this and less of that, those kinds of conversations. So it's a little bit of it's tax planning with a little bit of a CFO type of an
Right.
eye. And my clients tend to, I think they like it. You know, it's always good to kind of know where you're going to be, so you don't get to the end of the year and have a big surprise when we file your tax return.
Right.
I personally don't just want to be a historian. I don't want to just do your tax return, fill in the lines, and not have you understand everything that is part of that.
Right.
So,
Well, and what I hear you saying is that you're more than just a transactional tax lady or bookkeeper or accountant, CPA. You are a strategic consultant and you are really the wisdom around the money around these small business owners who may be getting into business and they're already overwhelmed by just running their day to day and trying to practice their craft. It's the whole reason why they hire you, because they don't have time to think about that, or they don't want to think about that. They want to leave it to an expert so that it just takes that heavy weight off of their plate, right? So
right.
who would you say are the typical clients? You know, if you look at your clientele right now, is there a certain industry that you tend to draw more, or is it a hodgepodge of different businesses?
Well, I have clients from all kinds of different businesses, real estate um, professionals, project property managers, because I have a good background in real estate since my husband and I both invest in real estate too. So I understand that there are like 10,000 different ways you can invest in real estate and how each different way is treated from a tax perspective. And so I do have a lot of clients that are in that area. I also have clients who have a small business and then they own rental homes, and so they got a lot of different buckets of things going on.
Right,
I love working with medical practitioners, especially the ones that are kind of on their own. Because if you're a doctor with Ascension or Community Health Network, they're already supplying all of that to you.
right,
Um, because you're essentially their employee at that point, and so they're doing all of that back office back end stuff and you're just getting a paycheck.
yeah,
But the doctors who are optometrists or dentists or um, I mean, if they just have a standalone practice basically,
yeah.
then they might need something like what I offer, which is a client. I put together a client services package
Hmm.
for these clients where we figure out how much bookkeeping per month you need, what your payroll cycle is, how many employees are you paying, and things like that. And we kind of drill that down into a once a month payment. So like even your tax planning and your tax preparation are all included in that once a month amortized payment.
Right,
And it does all come down to, how many hours do you need of this and how many do you need of that, but
right.
it does make it budgetable, you
Yeah,
know, and no surprises, no surprise bills, because I know a
right,
lot of people in my industry, they'll bill for every 15-minute phone call,
right,
and I've never really particularly wanted that factor to stop a client from calling and saying, I was thinking about doing this. What do you think? You
right.
know, so that's part of my job that I like. So I don't want to discourage it by
Right.
sending them a bill after I have a conversation with them. So that's the primary thing I think that really kind of separates me from other tax practitioners or CPAs out there. I'm more than just a historian. I'm kind of wanted to be interactive with my clients about their business as much as they will allow me to be. There are some
Right.
clients that I don't hear from, but maybe once or twice a year.
Hmm.
But you can always just offer things. Do you can't make people do what that's probably better for them. But
Right. Right. It's kind of like
so
going to the chiropractor. You go and the chiropractor wants you to come back every week, but you're like, oh, let's go when I'm in complete pain.
yeah, I'll go when I'm in pain.
Right. It's
Well,
probably
I
the
do
same
that
thing
with the
with taxes.
doctor too. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm not gonna go for a checkup. Yeah, well, I go once a year for a physical, but it's kind of like I'm not going to the doctor unless I have to.
Right. Right.
But and I know that most people out there would rather stick a fork in their eye than talk about taxes. But you know,
Well,
it's just
Sherry, I want to dig into something here because you sit in a unique position. You have your clients coming in, these small business owners. you get to see financial trends happening. And that's always fascinating to me. I mean, you get to see what's going on with their finances. I imagine that you are the type of professional that you're looking at trends, or you're looking at, oh, I see the economy is having an impact on this business. I mean, they're deciding, I believe, today about a government shutdown. And so it's causing a wave of fear everywhere. And, ultimately that impacts how people spend, and that it just has this snowball effect on businesses. So that's just one example of, speaking of trends, what are you seeing with your clients? What trends are you seeing?
Um, well, I have to say that the economy is affecting every single business out there. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter if you're selling widgets or flipping hamburgers or, you know, um, doing a service ministry.
right.
It's just things cost more.
Yeah,
And unless you're raising your prices or feel that you can raise your prices, and it makes a bigger difference to those people who are selling goods
right.
than it does the people who are selling services. But prices are raising across the board. And so it's going to get tougher to see that bigger margin on the bottom lines. Um, I just foresee over the next couple of years, it's just going to get tougher. And then there are some government regulations that just passed that go into effect in 2024 that, it's going to cost a little bit more in professional services, and
Mhm.
it's going to cost a little bit more. Um, for example, the Secure 2.0 Act. Um, it's an add-on to the Secure Act that passed when COVID was going on. And what Secure 2.0 is meant to do is it's meant to encourage savings, retirement savings, particularly.
Mhm.
So a lot of that is centered around employers that have 10 full-time equivalent employees are going to be required to put a 401k plan in
Oh,
place,
wow. Okay.
which is a bit, I mean, it's administrative, kind of an administrative nightmare in
Right.
some cases, because, they're going to have a professional to help.
Mhm.
And I always say with a 401k that the regulations are so strict too, that you want to have a third party administrator, which, that's another monthly fee. So um, that's one of them. And then we've been talking a lot between myself and my attorney friends, because we help companies form their LLC or their partnership or their S corp, and now we're required to make them aware, not only make them aware, but in a lot of cases probably have to do it for them.
Mhm.
um, Fill out what's called a FinCEN document. It's a separate document from a tax return, but they have to list all of the beneficial owner information on there. And so, it's just another administrative thing that the government's like coming along. But and they say, I have to laugh because they'll say that it's to combat money laundering and bad actors. And myself and all of my colleagues are like, do we really think that if they're doing illegal stuff that they're going to follow this and do this?
Right.
you know they don't care.
And
it's
honest.
all of those it's all those honest people who are forming honest companies that are going to
They're
follow through, or and so I hope that they kind of push that down the road a little bit, but they're talking about having that effective January 2024 too. So, it's just, and it'll affect companies that are in already companies too, because we have to gear up to put that information out there in that database for them as well. Um, so it's one of the new regulations that it's kind of like I'm always saying I don't necessarily agree with all of the rules.
Right.
I just have to follow them, and I have to make sure my clients know that they have to follow them, so
Well, I imagine that, and thank you for sharing that. That kind of makes me have a knot in my stomach as a business owner.
yeah.
But speaking of challenging situations, what would you say is one of the most challenging experiences that you've had with clients, or just, maybe there was a problem or a challenge that you were dealing with that you managed to get through, and it just helps to define your career even.
I don't know how much it defines my career, but I think the most challenging season of being an accountant was when the shutdown happened. Luckily, I had things like Zoom and stuff like that in place so that I could still meet with clients. That tax year was a nightmare because Congress passed new rules in the middle of tax season. And so anybody who we had already done and filed kind of got letters. And as a practitioner, as a professional, I hate it when my clients get letters. I know sometimes it's inevitable, but in that case, it was just like, why'd you change it? Like it literally changed in March, and tax, so they extended the tax deadline too, that's caused a little bit of a challenge because a lot of taxpayers think that deadline is still extended, I think, and it's not.
Right.
So so it's just kind of like the best practice for taxpayers, especially small business taxpayers, is to be on top of it on a regular basis. Don't wait till the end of the year to try to put together all your financial information. um that's it makes it challenging for your tax practitioner. It makes it challenging for you, and you're not really getting the data out of it that you need. I mean, I know that there are a lot of people that confuse income with cash flow. And as long as I have money in my bank account, I must be making money, and that's not necessarily true. So, um, so I would say that those kinds of things are almost, again, I feel like I get on a soapbox about this kind of stuff because I just see how it affects um, the bottom line, how it affects people. I do a lot of tax resolution work, and
Mm.
these are the companies that, oh, I'm too small to need an accountant. I don't really want to pay for that professional service because my budget doesn't really have it. And I would say budget for that professional service because it's either that or you're going to make mistakes and then you're going to have to pay a professional to resolve those for you. And so a lot of times it's kind of like, you paid me on the high end. Let's say I had a client that paid me $30,000 to solve a number of issues that the IRS had with him. And, if he would have just had me to begin with,
Right.
um, it wouldn't have been anywhere near that
Right.
over that period of time. So,
So, Sherry, so you really gave advice that should be a no-brainer for people. Take care of it as you go along. Don't wait till the end of the year, and because that creates chaos and confusion and pressure for everybody.
mhm.
Are there other tips or advice that you would give to small business owners that, maybe it's something that you see that they're not taking advantage of, or maybe they're going about it the incorrect way? What would some of those tips
How long is this interview?
well, we've got time for maybe one or two quick.
Because I've got a lot. Uh, I could get on a roll here. um, but you know, things that I guess to me are no-brainers are not no-brainers to the average business owner. Um, one of the soapbox topics I get on all of the time, and I call them soapbox topics because I feel like a preacher when I'm preaching that you have to have a mileage log. And you also have to keep all of the receipts from your repairs and maintenance on your vehicles, because those are things that are typically asked for if you get audited. It's like the number one thing that they want to see. And why they want to see that is twofold. One, it's proof that you actually own that vehicle and they can verify what the mileage, what the odometer reading is. Two, it's proof that you use that vehicle for business purposes. And if you don't have these documents, you're going to get disallowed your vehicle expenses, which in a lot of cases is a pretty hefty amount. Mileage is 65 cents a mile this year. So if you drive, heck, if you even drive 7,000 miles a year, which isn't a whole lot for a business owner, you're still, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And so it's kind of almost gotten to the point where I won't do the automobile expense if you can't tell me what the mileage is.
Right.
And in my due diligence, I'm asking, do you have your mileage log?
Yeah.
If you're a bookkeeping client, I encourage you to upload that to QuickBooks, because QuickBooks has a perfect tool built into it for all of that audit trail stuff. So mileage log, I would say number one. Meals and entertainment, also very important. Having your receipt, having a note on that receipt, what the business purpose was, who you met with.
Detail.
Because details are important. It's all, the devil is in the details, and not having those details could bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
So
Well, on that note of the devil being in the details, I would say, and I love you just bringing that out. What a great reminder that it does pay to be organized and detailed versus the person who's just kind of going to throw their stuff in a pile and then later they mistake it for trash and take it out. or
yeah,
or even just throwing it in a box till the end of the year and then saying, oh, it's tax time, let me figure out what I have here, and then you don't know what you
and
have.
things get missed that way too. I can guarantee you that if that's your accounting system, you're probably missing a whole lot of deductions that you could be taking, but you're not, because you're not accounting for it.
Right.
So yeah, it's tough, because I know people get busy, and your primary goal is you started your business to do what you love and
Right.
what you do well. The thing that a small business owner really should wrap their head around is hiring professionals to do the things that you don't do well. I do it myself. I'm terrible at marketing. I don't want to be a marketer, but I rely on my marketing people to tell me, hey, you need to do this. Like, hey, you need to start doing YouTube things or Facebook Facebook Live things and stuff like that. And I'm almost kind of like, do I have to? But and I figure that's how they feel about, hey, it's time to do your taxes or your tax planning. It's like, do I have to? Because that's not the fun part of your business,
Yeah.
um,
Well, Sharon,
unless you're me. So
um, I love, and as a matter of fact, we're doing this interview because people need to know about you. They need to know what you're doing. And what I know about you is you're a woman of integrity. You know your craft. You're an expert at what you do. And I also have extra love for you because you're sponsoring the VIP Center here as our top sponsor. So lots and lots of love going out to you. So I do want to thank you for being a part of the interview today, and we will make sure that those who see your video get your contact information so that they can get in touch with you and uh, ask questions and talk about what it looks like to work together. So thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you having me on today. Thank you.